Asian Americans are now realizing what Black Americans have been saying all along, that proximity to whiteness does not protect you.
To the Asians that are still bending over backwards for white acceptance, what has it gotten you? You guys got rid of affirmative action, and now we are not getting into top universities at the same rate that we used to, but when affirmative action was still a thing. Our elders were getting beat up in the streets during COVID. Did you having a white husband stop that from happening to your mom? Some of y'all made that shitty fusion cuisine and put strawberry in matcha, and now the white people really like it. And our food costs way too much. There's a matcha shortage. The colonizers are looking at ube now. They're trying to bulldoze Chinatowns across the nation. And your white husband is still gonna cheat on you when you have a baby and he finds a younger Asian woman. Your kid still doesn't have blue eyes. Your kid still has brown hair. What has it gotten you? What has this house servant mentality gotten you, gotten your family, gotten your community? I get that you feel better than other Asian women. I get that you feel like you're prettier, smarter, more accepted than Asian women like me who don't choose to do those things. But you're not even getting paid for waiting around in H-Mart waiting to help a white person find Asian groceries. Please move out of the way. I'm trying to get my chicken feet here. Oh yeah. And what has voting for Trump personally done for you?
I'm gonna rant a little about Asians who want to be white so bad. I was having a conversation with someone the other day and she went to a gathering, right? These people are Asian, right? But there are two white guys. Someone brought the Malona ice cream. The girl, who's Asian, goes, "Ew, is it an Asian ice cream?" And then she'd make comments like, "I wouldn't know because I don't have an Asian friend." She made another comment that said something like, "This feels like a whole bunch of Asians playing with two super smart white guys, playing a word game." Some shit like that. It's so cringe seeing Asian people try to cater to white people. Asian people act like proximity to whiteness makes them superior. You can literally feel the energy shift when someone has internalized racism. It's this weird mix of embarrassment, superiority, and "I'm not like those other Asians" vibes. And honestly, it's painful to watch. I've seen it so many times. Some Asians act like the second they get a white friend group, they level up in the social hierarchy. Suddenly, everything Asian is cringe or weird or low tier. You know what's the funniest part? They'll distance themselves from anything remotely Asian like it's toxic, and then they will over cater to their white partners or friends. Do you hear yourselves? It's like watching someone actively shrink themselves to fit into a box that was never built for them in the first place. Look, I get it, alright? A lot of Asians grow up being praised for assimilation. A lot of us are raised to believe whiteness equals safety, opportunity, acceptance. That's literally how internalized racism works. Acting like being white adjacent makes you superior to your own culture. Acting disgusted at your own food, your own features, your own background. It's not about hating anyone. It's more about calling out a pattern that harms all of us. Because when you look down at your own identity, the world learns to do the same. So yeah, Asians who think being white makes them better, just know that the rest of us see right through that.
You see, for decades, modern minority was sold as a safety. Many were told to work hard, stay quiet, and distance themselves from Black Americans, and you'll be accepted. But the so-called modern minority wasn't a compliment. It was a weapon created by the white supremacy to divide communities and pit them against each other and distract from the real system causing harm. So let's get to see more reactions, then I'll come back with more commentary, all right?
Did you ever notice how the model minority myth is only ever weaponized in one direction to harm Black people? When Black people are being compared to Asian Americans, then the hard work ethic and the emphasis on education are values that Asian Americans possess that Black people need to aspire to. But when white people are compared to Asian Americans, suddenly those same values are described as toxic. Black parents are told that they need to put more emphasis on education and discipline the way Asian American parents do, but with respect to white parents, suddenly Asian Americans are abusive, authoritarian tiger parents. And Black students are told that they need to study harder the way Asian American students do, but with respect to white students, suddenly it's unfair that they have to compete with the overachieving, nerdy Asian American students who lack social skills and were raised by the abusive, authoritarian tiger parents. And this is because the model minority myth is not something that was invented by Europeans about Asians. It is something that was invented in the United States about Asian Americans so that the United States could rehabilitate its reputation after the internment of Japanese Americans during World War II and to justify continued discrimination against Black people. Because according to the model minority myth, what Black people do is never enough and what Asian Americans do is too much because we live by a standard of just white.
Asian people in the US are so weird, liking white people more than their own people.
Think of it like this. When COVID hit, remember all the anti-Asian rhetoric that was going around America? Now imagine that energy stretched over a lifetime. Growing up, I'd hear that Asian men are not attractive, we only know how to do math, we can't drive, we have small The funny accents, the slanty eyes. It's really hard, given all of that, to grow up as an Asian man in America and be proud of who you are. Now imagine coming home and the people in your house are Asian parents who don't express their emotions, who lay hands on you, who don't ever apologize, who make you feel less than for not wanting to be a doctor or engineer. Mine also called me stupid. Oh, you'll never get into this school, you'll never do this. Look at my friend's son and what he's doing. And so when both your indoor and outdoor environments make you question your self-worth, of course you're going to try and be someone else. I think that's human nature. And in America, what group do you look towards? White people. They are the heroes in all the movies, they're on all the magazines. It is very easy to put them on a pedestal, which I did, admittedly. And my story isn't unique. Now, these days, I am proud of who I am, and my heritage, and my facial structure. But it took a long time and a lot of personal growth and a lot of help from cultural phenomena like K-pop. There is so much more to say about this topic, like, for example, how a lot of Asian Americans don't feel connected to their extended families because they're not Asian enough, or how I, in college, saw up close white people with their close families and how that impacted me. But I want to keep it short. I hope this helps you and other Asians who didn't grow up in America understand us better.
Let's talk Asian Americans and proximity to whiteness. So I'm going to just come right out and say it for everybody, just so we're clear on the truth here. Proximity to whiteness is actually an illusion. It's not real. And believing in it often comes from gaps in US history and just purely indoctrination from white supremacy. However, it does produce real consequences, and I feel the need to say that because of how this comment is worded. Most people do not realize when it comes to Asian Americans, we had a long period before the civil rights movement, prior to the immigration bans, when Chinese and other Asian immigrants came to the US. It was during the gold rush, later to build the railroads. If you know anything about the coolie trade, that was a factor too, which is why so many Asian Americans exist in Latin America, exist in Central America, etc. They're brought here under exploitative contracts, essentially to replace enslaved labor. And this person in the comments said that they knew about some of those things, but thought that it only happened to Asians during times of war. This wasn't about war, it was labor, profit, and exploitation. Although I want to add that Asian Americans are historically scapegoated in the US in times of war, sickness, and when there's a loss of jobs. There is a tangible pattern of that. That's another video though if you want more information. Asian Americans, stay with me. This is important for us to know. But after a certain point, immigration from all of Asia was banned for decades. A lot of people get the timelines of all these things wrong, so it's important to know the history. And on top of that ban, there was so much discriminatory legislation against Asian Americans that were still in the US at that time. Again, that's why there's pockets of Asian communities in places like the Deep South. That's why history is so crucial, because without it, it's easy to misunderstand these patterns and think that we've always had some sort of proximity to whiteness, which means we're close to white. Again, it's an illusion, but that's because of the model minority myth. A lot of people think because there was an immigration ban that they just got rid of all the Asians that were already here. No, if you were here, you were still in the US, so there were still Asians in the US. A lot of people believe that because of the model minority myth, again created during the civil rights era, was part of Cold War propaganda that's happening at the same time. It was used to say, see, Asians succeed, they just work hard, they don't complain, what's wrong with black people? And they did that while ignoring the structural barriers and discrimination that existed for the Asians that were here prior to that, prior to letting Asians back in, and it still exists today. That narrative isn't accidental, it's skewed data, it's aggregated statistics to make us appear more successful than we actually are as Asian Americans, and it was used to create this image so they could deny us resources and support to the community, which happens to this day. So when you say, I thought Asians always had proximity to whiteness, it's really not your fault, because our history has been written completely out of mainstream narratives, and a lot of people just don't even bother to learn it. I don't blame them though, because we don't learn history right here in the US. Laws like the Testimony Exclusion Act made it illegal for Asians, Indigenous, and Black people to testify against white people, which meant crimes like the Chinese massacre went unpunished. That was what my original video was about. That's what this comment's from. These gaps in history, combined with myths like the model minority myth, make it seem like Asians were always closer to whiteness, but it's an illusion. It's just to create a divide between us and everyone else. It has created very real consequences, all mostly bad. Understanding this history matters not just for context, but for justice, because the stories of exploitation, exclusion, and resilience need to be told to truly see the realities of race in the US, and how we as Asian Americans are often used as puppets. And I think this whole like H-Mark Gate thing is kind of putting that on display. This has nothing to do with the comment. Taking all this information into consideration, it's essentially understanding the full scope as to why the whole H Mart Gate controversy is happening right now, and it's getting a resurgence again. And I want to add that Asian Americans, while yes, proximity to whiteness is an illusion, many subscribe to it in hopes that it is real because many still fall for the illusion and many still center whiteness, as we saw from so many reactions from a satirical video. Yeah, that's true for every race, but specifically keeping to our business, we got to be honest about the ways that we're doing that and upholding anti-Blackness and white supremacy. And when you have a contextual understanding of history, you can see how we've been used throughout history to do that. And for the Asian Americans who are licking the boots of white people, this is a genuine look in the mirror moment, especially for folks, Asian folks.
I have no doubt that Danish deception guy can scam more money in China. And apparently he did have victims in Shanghai. Because you'll be shocked to find out how many Chinese people worship whiteness, specifically putting mediocre white men on pedestal. I'm saying this because I used to be one of them. Okay, this is so embarrassing to admit. Beyonce, please forgive my sin. But looking back, aside of my people pleasing and savior complex, being seen with a white man really did make me special in the way that I probably wouldn't feel if I'm with an Indian, Asian, Black, or any other man of color. And I think this is connected to the message we received as we grew up. You know, back then, all the leaders of all industries are white people, and all the Hollywood movies, TV shows we watched are filled with white faces. So without even realizing it, the sense of white supremacy is already subtly ingrained in our heads. And you can see this effect in the East Asian beauty standards. All the girls like high nose, double eyelids, and really white skin. And it makes me wonder if the media we consumed as kids told us that Indian girls are the standard of beauty, would there still be so many girls who would go extreme to harm their bodies to white their skin? Another really sad thing to see is that in China 2025 you can still get colonial treatment. Like if you walk into a bar or restaurant where there are a lot of like Westerners, you will notice how better they treat white people than they treat Chinese people. In Chinese we call this type of people 香蕉人, banana people. You're yellow on the outside but you're white inside. Mentally, spiritually, you so want to be white. But as they say, you live and you learn. I really hope more Chinese people and other Asian people, let's stop putting mediocre white men on pedestal.
Hold on, I have to shut the door and tell you guys this. I was talking to this guy, and when I say talking, just a friend, and he's Asian and white. And he tells me, like, I was like, hey, are you worried about, like, you know, Trump and the things that he's been saying and people going to different countries, not being able to come back into the U.S.? He dead ass looks me in the face and he says, like, he's not really worried because most people think he's white. I paused. The way I paused and looked at him made me realize that mixed black people are not the only ones who have like that blindness to think that they don't look black. Because when he said it to me, I was like, do I correct him? He really thinks he does not look Asian. And I was like looking at him dumbfounded because I was like, no, but you look Asian. So now I've realized that biracial white people, like black people, are not the only ones who have that blindness. And I did not correct him because at this time I was like, I don't think he needs that lesson from me. I don't think he needs it from me.
Honestly, yeah. And it's really unfortunate and really embarrassing and shameful that Asians do crave that proximity to whiteness so badly that we're willing to not be in solidarity with other BIPOC or black, queer, brown folk. Like, it's... we can always boil things down to like childhood and upbringing, but I like to always say, like, this is what I kind of learned in therapy. Like, once you're an adult and you realize you have free will and you realize you have the agency to unlearn, relearn, like unpack and discover life, that you start to realize how fucked up it is that we want that and we crave that proximity to whiteness. Like, I will say that is oftentimes with a lot of Asian Americans that I meet, East Asian Americans specifically where I'm speaking from, but like in my experience, I questioned this at such a young age, and I think that's because I didn't grow up in I grew up in a predominantly white space, but then when my parents got divorced, we ended up moving to like a lower income area, and I went to school with primarily Black and brown and like Hispanic folk, and everything changed when I was around other people of color, honestly. Like when I was just around white people, I did want to like look white, feel white, act white. And like, you know, everyone back then, I remember Twinkie was a thing. And then when I moved to like the different neighborhoods, and also then I moved to LA because I'm from DC, and then I like moved my life over here, and I have not gone back to the East Coast. I'm never gonna live on the East Coast again unless it's like New York or like possibly Miami, but I want my Spanish to get better first. But it's our responsibility as a community to be better and to do better.
I'm never in Asian people's business like I have been this week, but take a listen to this.
I have something to add. Why is it that every Black person on my For You page who is commenting on side-eyeing or not side-eyeing white people in H Mart, they get it like that, like what's going on and why that's a thing. But like there's fully grown Asian creators who are like super defensive of white people for some reason.
Black people do not crave proximity to whiteness. We do not think white is ideal and Black is less than. We do not put whiteness on a pedestal, and we do not try to assimilate into whiteness because Black culture is one of the dominant prevalent cultures in America. What you're experiencing is Black people knowing who our oppressors are, understanding the histories of our oppressors, and understanding how being in proximity of our oppressor has never benefited us ever in the history of our time here in America. Asian people have been made a model minority since your inception into this country as Chinese people. And that has been extended to Koreans, Cambodians, everyone else who's Asian by proxy. And that assimilation or that desire to be considered the model minority and to be propped up above Latinos and Black people always makes Asians side with the side of the oppressor, wanting white people in their spaces, being the group that marries white men more than anyone else as a person of color. And that also includes the proximity to whiteness that you guys hold. Now, you couple that with the fact that white people in this country are obsessed with non-white cultures, but do not prop up non-white cultures because they understand that the dominant people in this country, and they can steal from Asians if they want, they can steal from Latinos if they want, they can steal from Black people if they want, but less so the loss, because Black people have a tendency of calling white people out when they do steal our stuff and culture appropriate it, whereas you see, Asians don't really make enough noise to combat what white people take from them. So seeing a white person in H Mart, I would give the side eye all fucking day, for sure. Especially because I live in LA and I've been to H Mart a couple of times. It's the only place I can find oxtail and a bunch of other stuff that I cook when I cook Caribbean food or food that Black people want. It's the only place where things are still priced regularly. And once white people find shit, prices go through the roof because come with me as I find this new cool spot in Koreatown. We don't need that. The reason why Black people can call this out is because this has been happening to us since the inception of time. People like Elvis. Elvis is a caricature of a Black man. You look at all of the boy bands that they stole that entire aesthetic and persona from R&B groups. Everything that has been made pop culture in this country derives from Black people at a certain point. So when you ask the question as to why there are less Asian people calling out white people in your spaces, it's because culturally you guys are more aligned to be with and care about what white people think about you versus us. And if you want to look at any of the history of this country, which you guys should take a look at our history, but we're so busy, you're so busy trying to be above us, instead of understanding that without understanding our history, you'll never truly understand your place in this country. But hey, this is a longer conversation, and I'm never in Asian people's business, but I've seen this thing pop up on my page several times this week.
Dear Asians, hopefully we've learned now not to crave white acceptance because it brought us H Mart Gate and we're all very done with that, but also because craving proximity to whiteness brought us this and this And this, which just happened recently, and, if you think that you're safe because you're not a foreigner, they can legally racially profile you, so it doesn't even matter. I present to you a chance to stand up against the white nationalist agenda and to do these actions to help bring Yuanxing home.
As an Asian American, I know that a lot of my privilege comes from our proximity to whiteness, and with that privilege comes a certain level of protection that is not the case for everybody, particularly Black and brown folks. And so I was talking about this situation where this white woman confused me for another Asian person that she had just seen, even though we looked nothing alike. And I didn't say anything in the moment because I have just become accustomed to not really calling those things out and not wanting to make people uncomfortable. And in doing that, I was not only suppressing my own voice, but I also wasn't using the privilege and the protection that I have. There was never any danger, physical or otherwise, that I was in, and I certainly wouldn't have been in any danger even if I had called it out. She would have just been uncomfortable probably and maybe thought twice about doing that in the future. But that's not the case for everybody in every situation, especially for Black and brown folks who call out the very real racism that they see every day. There are a lot of problems with anti-Blackness in the Asian community, and so as I am trying to consciously relearn the way that I should handle these kinds of interactions, I'm glad that a lot of folks are rightfully calling out that it is incumbent upon me and other Asian Americans who have this proximity to whiteness and this privilege to speak out when we ourselves are not in danger in a way that other folks might be.
The idea of Asian Americans as a middle minority did not come from the Asian communities themselves. It was manufactured by the white power structure. The term gained popularity in the 1960s during the height of the civil rights movement. At the same time, Black Americans were demanding equal rights in housing, desegregation, and an end to state violence. Mainstream media began publishing stories praising Asian Americans as quiet, obedient, hardworking, and successful despite discrimination. And this wasn't accidental. White America used Asian Americans as a counterexample to discredit Black resistance. What you're witnessing now is a moment of awakening. Asian Americans speaking about proximity to whiteness is not betrayal. It is growth and clarity. The modern minority myth was sold as safety in exchange of silence. It promised acceptance if you distance yourself from Black Americans. But history has shown us again that proximity to whiteness has never guaranteed safety, When whiteness is threatened, it reminds everyone of where they stand. So when Black Americans want minority groups, they are not trying to pull them down, They are telling them the truth about a system built to protect itself. The modern minority myth creates resentment within communities of color. And when they stay divided, the white supremacy, that's when it thrives. So at the moment, Asian Americans are rejecting the idea of proximity to whiteness and naming anti-Blackness within their own communities. And they are now acknowledging that silence did not save them. And the sooner all marginalized communities understand this, the harder it becomes for the system to keep us divided. So thank you so much for tuning in. Be sure to like, subscribe, and share. Have a good one. I'll see you in the next video.